I'll go.
Welcome to Deciphered Podcast. I'm Rob. This guy's gross. Wow. Just sheerly fantastic.
Awfully. I'm Kieran. How's it going, guys? I'm so hot suddenly.
You're looking a little red in the face too, mate. You're alright. We are back with another episode.
Episode 27.
No fucking way.
Yeah, man, all day long.
Today we are going to be talking about some things, some very British things. Because, Kieran, today we start our mini-series of World Tour.
Could have told me.
I thought I did, actually.
Oh, yeah, shit.
Did you not get the memo?
No.
Right, okay, fair enough.
Lost in the Royal Mail.
So yeah, we are going to be talking about very British metal and rock bands, some that are rather prolific in the scene and have made an impact.
Yes, we're going to delve into the history. Well, it's the first instalment of the Tour of the World series. The UK is the day today.
The day is very UK today. It has been quite a UK kind of day.
Yeah.
I think so.
So we're going to delve into the history and go up into the current world of the UK music scene. And speaking of the UK music scene, today's review is none other than No Tourists by The Prodigy.
Which is worth pointing out, won by vote.
Yes, won by the poll. Chat all over Enter Shikari.
I mean, it didn't, did it really? It was like a few votes in it.
A win's a win, young petal.
Yeah, well, I didn't ask half of my Facebook to go for it, but perhaps I should.
Most of my friends I thought would choose Enter Shikari.
No.
Yeah, I thought so. I was really surprised Prodigy won, but
I'm not, to be fair.
Thanks for the slander there.
The slander. I've slandered your name.
You're slanderous.
So yeah, we've got that review coming up. But first...
Yeah, the news. Starting off with... Ollie Herbert.
Ollie Herbert.
Ollie Herbert. We got an update on his circumstances,
which we shouldn't really be laughing because that's not funny.
Yeah, he did. So he. I shouldn't be laughing. And yes, so a couple of weeks back we mentioned that he had died, which is unfortunate. He was found in a pond in his back garden.
And obviously up until this point in time, maybe, been very unsuspicious. There's been a lot of focus on the fact that he was suffering with sort of depression and stuff as well. They thought if it was sort of foul play, it was his own, potentially, which I didn't really think too much into, but there you go. There's been a wide array of sort of reasons behind it, but more and more is coming out now, as I'm understanding.
Yeah, so it's been officially announced that the police are treating it as suspicious, and there are rumours going around that his wife is the main suspect. So it seems that maybe he overdosed this by being spiked or something.
Wow.
With his drugs, his prescription drugs. Obviously, I believe he was very drunk as well. Now, apparently, and this is unconfirmed, his wife got his will changed like a matter of a month before his death.
Wow. And
it benefits her a lot more than it did beforehand. She also cancelled the memorial gathering.
Yeah, because she was worried for her own safety, I read, which is questionable, really. Not too sure what that's all about.
No, so more updates each week as they come. Here. Next up, we have the peculiar fiasco of the world famous band Threatin'.
Who I had never heard of until reading this, personally. So I don't know about any of you guys.
Mr. Jared Threatin of the band Threatin', he has gone on to a UK and European tour. He states that he's a Californian band, right?
I mean, when you say he states that he is a Californian band,
he moved to California and this is where he set it all up.
Yeah, but I mean, like you're speaking about bands technically as one person. Oh wait. Is it just him, or
No, there is a band,
right?
but I'm pretty sure he's the mastermind behind this whole idea.
Okay, right, okay.
And oh wait,
Go for it. I haven't started yet, Sonny Jim.
woo!
Oh, so
Feisty. And yeah, so they came to the UK, I believe, last week, maybe the week before, to do their UK tour and to then go on to Europe. And I believe the first venue they were playing at was the Underworld in Camden in London.
crazy.
Super crazy. And he worked everything out. So he made up loads of fake company names, right? Said they had a band manager, and that their band manager had sold hundreds of tickets in advance of the gig
For that show, that venue.
them.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so they were going to headline. Loads of venues agreed to it. Like the Underworld's it's not a big venue, but status wise, it's well known.
There's a reputation at stake if they're like if there's debauchery at foot.
Yes, debauchery, and yeah, it's just not very good, really. So he has.
So what? So there's no manager. There's no.
No, there's no band manager. So he blagged that they sold 100 tickets. They made a video of he doctored a video of a live show in America, and that was used as their promotional feature to get them the gigs in the UK and Europe.
Right.
So it looked like it was like a crazy crowd going for them, and it was all nuts. On YouTube, that was obviously fake.
Yeah,
there was no show beforehand.
Right.
On YouTube, he made like 15 to 20 or ish profiles up and commented on their music videos.
And this is all one guy.
This is the one dude, yeah. And he wrote weird things like "I love you, I want to be with you" kind of thing from like loads of girl fans and stuff like that, and saying he's a legend, blah blah blah. So really upping himself, but these fake profiles are doing it, and it's him writing it, so it's really weird. But it worked. So they got this headline gig at the Underworld in Camden. Only 3 people turned up, and they were all there to support the support band.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously they've paid money to go to England or whatever. With this much sort of questionability behind it, I'm literally unsure about saying anything. Like, have they even come over to the fucking country? Like,
Yeah, they came and played the shows.
so they played a show that they
Had 3 people at. 3 people at for the Underworld. In Manchester, they had no people turn up. They still played. They played to an empty room, apparently. And these people are like, where the fuck are these ticket sales?
So are we to assume then that they haven't actually sold any tickets? They've just said that they have.
Oh, yeah, correct. It's all fake.
What the fuck?
In London, the only people that came were 3 people that bought tickets because they wanted to be there for the support band. They may have been on the guest list.
To what benefit?
I guess to be noticed, and it's fucking worked.
Well, yeah, I mean,
International news.
we're talking about Undeciphered.
Yeah, I mean, world-class journalists right here.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just they've made a name for.
That's fucking weird.
But the drummer and the guitarist went home. They left the band halfway through the tour.
Halfway through the European tour, or
I think just the UK tour. UK
Right,
part of it
okay.
starts off with UK.
what? So they've left the band. They haven't just gone home. They've left the band.
But from what I've read, yeah.
Wow.
And the bassist couldn't leave the band because he didn't have money to fly home. I'm guessing this Jared Threatin is extremely rich and has got the money he can just throw away because they paid all the like rent or whatever it is, the booking
Hiring fees and stuff.
for
like that.
the hiring fees for the venues.
What the fuck?
So he's bought it out for the whole tour as well.
That's crazy. And obviously, if he's lying about having a manager, it's not that there's management involved that are giving them that money. That's definitely coming from him. Then.
Yeah,
Wow.
madness.
That is, pretty nuts. I guess we'll see what the hell happens with that then.
I'm sure it'll disintegrate into nothing, but they're being mocked heavily. I don't know what I don't know what the intention was apart from attention. But they're not getting the great attention now. Hi, Katrina Watson. Welcome.
Just quickly, like, how long have they been a band?
I don't actually know.
Fair enough.
World class.
Moving on.
So the final piece of news is
Oh, I heard about that.
yes, we're now talking about The Sims. So that's Corey Taylor today, I believe, maybe last night. Sorry,
Yeah, it was probably a last night or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, what the fuck?
Fan Rust. I can't speak English. Take it away, Johnny.
So, from what I read very briefly before we came here, a fan has rushed him on stage, and security have literally had to like physically intervene and have body slammed somebody.
They got to him before they got to Corey.
Right, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just fucking...
It's mad, isn't it?
It hasn't happened in a while, but to be fair, like we were discussing the other week as well, with things that have happened to people like Dimebag.
Yeah.
Like, they
jump the stage.
Yeah, security, it shows, should be that tight, really, if you're going to do something as stupid as jump on stage and try and, like...
Hey, Kira.
Asa! Yeah, I mean, fuck that. That's asking for it, really.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Nuts!
It's YA insane.
YA? Oh yeah, it's YA insane, mate.
Shall we move on to topic?
I think we shall, because I believe that is it for the news! But yeah, so we'll keep people updated on situations going forward.
Just got to make sure you tune in every single week to every single thing we do for the entire amount we're here. That way you won't miss a single thing, ever. Don't smoke. Now, the topic, my dear child, as created before we started, thankfully.
Yeah.
It's the Tour of the World, Part 1, UK. You
Yes.
okay? You okay?
I'm okay. UK?
UK.
Excellent.
Sick. Now, we're going to go about this in kind of like chronological order, and then we'll give like an overview at the end, and we'll do some subtopics here and there throughout the experience we're about to receive for you.
Wow. I mean, yeah, to be fair, I think when we've sort of thought this out, the idea is going to be that we'll talk about notable sort of in as chronological an order as possible. We'll talk about historical and prolific bands that have emerged from our great sunny country.
Yep. And then we'll talk about today's scene of music within our genre. We're going to talk about a lot of genres, but we're not going to talk about flipping MC Popsicle or what the fuck anyone's name is.
MC Popsicle.
I've made it up. It's going to sell.
To be fair, it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out as well that we have to talk about the impact that these bands have made, not only here, but if they've been an international success, why. And there are probably going to be some bands that we'll cover that might be the other way around, in the sense that they haven't really found their feet in their home country, but have managed to be like widely accessible. Because that was actually a bigger thing back in the day, especially.
You make it big somewhere else and then struggle in your own land.
Very much so.
Madness.
Speaking of the madness, we'll get onto those later. Ooh, a little bit of a spoiler for you there. So, are you ready to commence?
Yes, take me away.
I don't think this list can begin without the Beatles.
The Beatles.
The Beatles. I mean, arguably where our genre on the whole, in some ways or another, through influence and just through the general way in which music changed with these guys.
It's definitely it's a main staple, yeah. Also, Beatles had their influences, but they created their own sound.
Beatles had their influences from like blues bands and musicians, like mostly from obviously America, and
It was America.
they're in America. And yeah, essentially, John Lennon in particular was a big fan of things like that. Elvis is quite possibly John Lennon's probably biggest influence, I would say. Not so much in what you hear when you listen to the Beatles, because it doesn't really sound anything like Elvis, but nobody really sounds like Elvis, apart from Elvis impersonators. And Elvis.
There's a lot of them.
There actually is, yeah. I used to kill a lot of them in GTA 2 way back in the day.
They're a horrible band.
Not at all, that's what they're there for. But
GTA 2?
yeah,
So it's air.
wildly tangential. But yeah, overhead, they're running around the streets. Oh, sorry, baby. Step off.
I don't remember that.
Mate, I will get the YouTube video. I can show you shortly. But yeah, so back on topic.
Sorry, yes.
The Beatles definitely changed the face of music and how the public accessed it on like a wide scale. Basically, whenever we say a band has gone mainstream nowadays, that's the term that gets thrown around quite loosely.
Sup, Jordan Watson.
Sardard.
Welcome.
Mainstream, I personally believe, through the way, the medium in which I'm trying to sort of get at, mainstream is only a term that began because of the Beatles.
Okay.
Because before then, music was like, if you were a fan of music, you knew where to buy it, and what you bought was very specific. Whereas the Beatles were probably, if not one of, I mean, among other names like Elvis, the Beatles were one of the first bands that was an international success immediately. Was very, like, you know, widespread on its radio play. Definitely donned a cult of its own within a very short space of time. So lots of things to sort of take into account. And just in general, that kind of sense of how we obtain and appreciate music nowadays, I feel like a big part of the way that changed was with them back in 1960.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they were probably active, not necessarily with each other, but I definitely know John and most likely Paul had bands before the Beatles.
See, I don't actually know much about the Beatles as a whole.
A lot of people don't nowadays, and I'm definitely not an expert. There are still people that walk this planet today that will literally be able to live and breathe and retell their entire story front to back to you. And in that sense, like, to anybody that can do that, it's a really big deal that they can do that as well. Oh, mate, Pringle medley.
Mm-hmm. Although other crisps are available elsewhere.
We're not advertising.
No.
Eat Pringles. Doritos, mate. That's what it's all about.
You could skip that right now.
Oh, snap. What's it? What'd you say?
Skip.
All right, okay. What's it? No?
Oh, no.
Anyway.
Let's talk about crisps.
Yes, because we are very stereotypically British in tonight's topic.
Hi, Gareth.
That's our I did. And they're not chips, are they? So we're definitely talking about crisps, and we are British.
English. I don't associate myself with those three other peasantry countries.
Wow. Smash.
Anyway, here we are talking about the whole of the UK.
Yeah, and influences from such Welsh bands like... Stay tuned to find out.
They are pretty cool.
Yeah, they're a really good band.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving back to the Beatles just roughly anyway, still a massive band even to this day, have sold roughly 800 to 850 million units worldwide.
Yeah, it's mad.
I'd be hard pressed to see if another band could sell that many units together over its entire discography, but who knows? Maybe. I've heard that One Direction topped one of their records for something. I believe that was perhaps just for one record sale compared to one other, like Abbey Road or Sgt. Pepper, probably.
Disgusting, isn't it? Well, I heard that they overall worldwide outsold the Beatles. Like they are the highest selling.
Nah, fuck that.
Yes, if true, it's disgusting.
It's fucking disgusting. But yeah, so I mean that's still a lot of sales to make,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like their merch. Our merch. We don't have merch. Their merch is still very, very highly protected through its sales, still to this day.
Yeah.
The Beatles are the kind of bands that still to this day, even though like the band won't have that much to do with it themselves, are so severely managed now because of the phenomenon, I guess, behind them, that they're the type of band that it wouldn't surprise me if services like Spotify didn't have all of their albums due to legal reasons and things like that. They're very highly protected still to this day.
They're never going to go poor, are they?
No.
Survivor members, that is.
I mean, Lennon obviously was shot dead, as we discussed, on the same day of the year or date as Dimebag was. Was it 24 years or something like that, or 34 years? Craziness. But yeah, so he was obviously shot dead on the street, though, unlike Dimebag.
Yeah. But is Paul McCartney alive?
Well, this is a very interesting little bit of controversy. Yeah, we wouldn't be deciphered without death.
Death ciphered.
Death ciphered, yeah, maybe. Stay tuned to see if that's what we end up changing on into. But I mean, yeah, so way back in the day, there was talk that Paul McCartney supposedly died. And because of them being in the stride of their success at that point in time, and the fact that, quite frankly, their fan base and the way that they were projected onto the world, would have definitely incited riots to find out that they were disbanding because somebody had died. Like they had that level of kind of following, really, where like one member dying and the other saying we don't want to do this without that. I mean, if Architects had done that after Tom, people probably would have been like, yeah, fair enough, don't blame you. Like that's a hard thing to do. Whereas back then, like these guys had that much at stake following them, and the world was literally obsessed for a time there, that it's genuinely probably would have incited riots and burning buildings and death.
I was under the impression Beatles had already split up.
I mean, when
John Lennon died.
Oh yeah, they had.
Right.
Yeah, they disbanded and they all had, well, obviously Paul and John Lennon more so, but they all had successful, like, what do you call it? Careers, solo careers. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, they had disbanded by that point in time. John Lennon was writing songs like Imagine, where, you know, and obviously the whole thing with the whole Yoko Ono thing as well, like the whole John and Yoko thing was a big thing that came. Again, people obviously say that could have contributed to why the assailant decided to.
Oh, dude. What? It's such a bad sound effect for shooting someone in the face.
Oh, I thought you opened your Pringles, sorry.
Oh, there's another one. Celebrate.
Wow. Just when we couldn't get any darker. So yeah, that is a brief story of the Beatles. And obviously, music legend lives on.
Yeah, for sure.
Qualitiness.
Who's next on the old timeline?
Well, gave birth to bands such as the Rolling Stones.
Yes.
So pretty much immediately after the Beatles started seeing like the real strength of their success, which was probably only about a year and a half or so into their like coming together as a band. Not the Stone Roses, the Rolling Stones.
They see me rolling.
Some Stones. Yeah, they pretty much piggybacked. Now, this is obviously a thing that's probably plagued them throughout their entire careers, but they kind of piggybacked on the back of Beatles' success in most people's eyes. They're not too dissimilar bands, and generally speaking, I think the difference between them is the Beatles were very much like they kind of adopted this like psychedelic hippie kind of thing, and that was what made them this like mysterious force, I guess. Rolling Stones were definitely like one of the first bands to really go out there and do the whole sort of dark partying. I mean, like people often say, Taylor Hawkins, for example, as a drummer, has when he was going through like a thing, living off of the excess of being on tour and stuff like that, and like, you know, fame going to his head, he describes that time as his Keith Richards period. So that gives you an idea of what the Sex Pistols basically became famous for, was playing very similar music that was still really enjoyable, but being more like sex, drugs, rock and roll kind of thing, more than the Beatles were. So they kind of gave birth to that side of the image.
Rewind, you just said Sex Pistols.
No.
I'm sure you said
Sex, drugs, rock and roll.
No, before that you said Sex Pistols.
No. Rolling Stones and Beatles.
Monty.
The Rolling Beatles.
The Rolling Beatles. Quick comment from... Oh, hi Alex. Quick comment from Katrina.
Yeah.
So her mother was a sister at a Middlesex hospital some point in the late 60s. The Beatles played one day a surprise gig on the rooftop opposite the hospital.
Crazy.
She said that apparently hundreds of people were just flooding out of the hospital to go witness this, which is unsurprising from the scenes that you've seen with the Beatles before.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like they were definitely the first bands that couldn't get off of their plane. Like when they land in another country to go and do some shows, they were the type of band that wouldn't be able to get off their plane without being like entirely bombarded. Like one of the most iconic images of them, other than the Abbey Road image of them going across the zebra crossing and stuff, is literally just 4 snapshots of them when they were really young and like first starting out their careers, and they're literally just surrounded by people. They're just surrounded.
Quick apology for the rest of the podcast. I have a snotty nose.
Wow. Anyway,
Foghorn.
So yeah, gave birth to bands like the Rolling Stones, which I'm not going to sit and talk like I know endless amounts of things about Mick Jagger or Keith Richards or the other two. That's literally my extent of them as a band.
He has lots of children.
Who?
Keith Richards, he's old.
He is old. He is turning 75 next week, I want to say.
Younger than I thought.
Not next week, next month. That's younger than you thought,
Yeah,
really.
I thought it was like his 80s.
No, man. I mean, he looks like he's in his 180s, but
Yeah.
that's what a ton of drugs will do to you, kiddies. I don't know what it did to his kiddies. Probably scarred them for life. So Rolling Stones, obviously, still big within their own right. Still very much a massively known force. I mean, obviously, we talked about different magazines and stuff, and the Rolling Stone was partially named because of the band.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
I mean, they are fundamentally massive in the British world.
Yeah, well, in the world, really. They still have like a massive following. They're another band that I think probably found a little bit more success in the States in general than they did over here. But who knows? I'd have to look into that a little bit more. As a band, I'm not really that interested in them enough to have done like a great deal of research for this. But got some dates together. Obviously, they became a band in '62. So that was 2 years after the Beatles had started. In the same year was Status Quo.
Okay.
Status Quo, Scone. You're all wrong. They started very shortly after the Rolling Stones, I believe, if not maybe just before, but definitely the same year. And again, the trend that we're seeing at this point in time is that these two bands that have obviously become extremely successful since then started and have probably both had to deal with people in the early days of their careers saying that they're just trying to be another Beatles wannabe band. These guys, more so than than Rolling Stones, were probably more along the lines of the Beatles in the sense that they weren't all about the partying and stuff. So quite a calm band. Again, I don't really know too much about them. Do you?
No.
Fair enough. But I just thought that they were worth mentioning because same year.
For sure.
Very soon after. Let's see. Who's fourth? The Who.
Who?
The Who.
Who are they?
Well, you should know the answer to that question, my friend.
Who?
Please tell me you know some Who songs.
That's literally doing that's a Who song.
No, but like which? Just
That was a Who song.
what? The Who?
Who are you? Who? I really want to know. Have you not heard that song?
I didn't say I was a massive Who fan. Just the fact that you were like Who.
No, my father. He played them a lot. As you will know, in I think episode 21 of this podcast,
That is very true. Yes.
where we know each other from and stuff. No, how we interview each other.
Where we know each other from.
I'll let you down the shops into Primark. And
Definitely didn't talk about the Who.
yes, they actually are on CSI. I don't watch CSI, but I've heard one of them, and I was like, oh, that's the Who. You got Pinball Wizard.
Yeah, man, tune.
You've got other songs that they've made.
Pinball Wizard. You've got
Killer Queen. No wait. Yeah.
Wow.
No, wait. That's Queen. It's looking up. Queen. Sorry, I got
My Generation.
Yes, I got My Generation mixed up. Sorry, you are right.
Yeah, massive. It's just excellent song. Behind Blue Eyes. Obviously.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, I do. I'm one of the people that likes enough of the Who. I certainly don't dislike the Who. That still appreciates Limp Bizkit's version. I wouldn't necessarily like to say that it's just as good, but I've certainly heard it more.
I was literally about to say controversial opinion.
You prefer it?
Prefer Limp Bizkits.
No way.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't bring myself to say that, but probably is the real thing.
Really fucking good cover.
Yeah, so that's the Who. Shortly followed by Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Now, Pink Floyd is huge. He's massive. They're massive.
Yeah.
I don't know much about them. It's really bad.
I
know
assumed
one
that you
song.
Yeah, and I know why. So for anybody that hasn't seen or met Kieran before, Avenged Sevenfold did a cover of a Pink Floyd song called "Wish You Were Here," which is arguably one of their biggest ones, if not "Shine On." You crazy motherfucking diamond. That's a song of theirs as well. Right, you crazy diamond. So a little bit of history about the band. They had a member called Sid, who struggled with booze and drugs and things, I believe. Again, not a band I know too much about. If anybody else has anything to pen in, then please do.
Pennine.
I'm not going to say what I was going to say. It was one of those things that was like, no.
Nope.
So yeah, I don't know too much about them, but yeah, they've got obviously a massive cult following still to this day. It's very much the type of music that dads listen to.
Yeah.
But yeah, still prolific as fuck in their own right.
For sure, yeah.
Now, I know that you're probably sat there thinking, where do bands like Black Sabbath come into this?
Oh, is it next?
It's not, actually, no. And this is the thing. So anybody, including yourself, one would assume, would probably argue that Black Sabbath are sort of genre-defining for metal specifically. And they are.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely pioneers.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so we'll get on to that in a minute.
Okay.
Because before that, it's fair to say that the other bands that we've mentioned so far are rock bands. None of them are particularly metal.
No.
So we have a band called Cream, again, that I don't know a great deal about, but are still credited, if I'm not mistaken, as a metal band.
Right.
Or at least a hard rock band. So there's a band that came before Sabbath that were at least tiptoeing in the right direction of setting the scene. We also then... Who is after these guys in my chronology? I really should have laid these out better. Definitely not metal, but you can see where some of the influences come in with Phil Collins and Genesis.
Yeah.
So they banded in 1967, believe it or not, which I'm not going to lie, I thought was a lot later. They struck me as the type of band that had only been a band since like the 1980s or something like that. I was literally a little bit shocked to find out that they had actually started doing music.
Yeah, when you said earlier, I was like, I didn't think it was that early for them.
No, yeah, 1967. So they were actually active 1 year before Ozzy. But before them was Led Zeppelin.
Before Led Zeppelin, before Black Sabbath?
Yeah.
Same year?
Same year, but... As we discussed earlier, so...
after you made that release music, sorry, weren't you? Formed in the same year. But like you just said, Zeppelin released music shortly, very, very, very shortly, I should imagine, before Black Sabbath did. Yeah.
Now, people can and ah about whether or not Led Zeppelin are metal, and to be fair, as a fairly big fan, not in so much in the way of history of the band, but certainly in the music... I really like Led Zeppelin, and even I wouldn't class them as metal.
Funny that.
But I will 100% defend to the death that they paved the way for metal as we know it to emerge.
Paved the way?
Paved the way...
It makes them sound like they are the... Like, there's been part of it and there's paving the way.
Right, well, in terms of certain aspects, they're part of it. In other aspects, I believe no other band would have done it until they did.
Fair enough. People believe unicorns exist doesn't mean they're right, does it?
No, and people are entitled to an opinion. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't shut the fuck up.
So before I go into a little back history of the band that created metal, Black Sabbath, do you want to give me a little history on Led Zeppelin? Or...
I don't really know too much. I know that, interestingly enough, Ozzy and Sabbath quote Zeppelin as... inspiration for the music that they created.
Kind of awkward. I'm joking, carry on.
Is it?
No, it's not.
Right. I mean, do you have something that contradicts that? Because, no. Oh, really? Do you have something that might actually aid that?
I mean, they were... Ozzy was in a bar in London called Blazes, journalist, and he heard a song come on from a DJ booth, and he asked, what the hell is this? Because it sounds amazing. I can tell it's Robert Plant. And the guy said, yeah, this is... they've changed the name to Led Zeppelin. He was like, fuck me, this is amazing. So there's no doubt to the fact that he definitely influenced Ozzy / Sabbath.
Yeah. Fair.
Rock bands can influence metal.
Oh, okay.
And-
right, okay, we're still on that. Right.
So
okay.
we won't stop. So Sabbath.
Yeah.
Fairly
I don't
good
really
Sabbath.
have too much else to say about Zeppelin other than John Bonham really was pinnacle in changing the way that drummers function in a band, 100%.
Of course.
But moving on to Sabbath, because I am more interested in their history, to be fair.
So with a couple of bands, we will go a bit more in depth because they're like pinnacle.
Definitely arguable that these guys are and should be one of those bands.
Yeah, and they paved the way for metal. So they're formed. I didn't know this until today. Right, they were formed as the Polka Tulk Blues Band,
Wow.
and then they changed the name to Earth.
Is that because they heard Led Zeppelin and thought, wow, we're not a blues band. We don't want to be a blues band. We want to be a metal band like those guys.
No,
Oh, right, okay.
because
Just
they
checking.
formed this. That name was when they formed, and that was before Zeppelin released music.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So, they renamed themselves as Earth, and then Black Sabbath in 1969.
Fucking hell.
And they played their first show on August 30th, 1969, with their first single, Evil Woman, being released in January 1970.
Fair enough.
So, as mentioned before, Zeppelin, and
Zeppelin.
Sabbath. Sabbath and Zeppelin members were actually friends before. Zeppelin inspired
Black Sabbath. Led Zeppelin. Oh, there's two fucking great episode names right
Yes.
there for you.
Check it. And we have over here. So obviously, as mentioned, heard the song on the club was amazed.
Yeah.
So they were known by many as the band that created metal, heavy metal, sorry, as a whole, with huge names in the metal world, such as Ivan Moody, Corey Taylor, M Shadows, and myself, citing them as creators of metal.
Huge names in metal, like myself.
Yeah, huge names in metal.
Yeah, 100%.
Moody,
like,
Taylor, Shadows, myself.
fair enough.
4 pinnacle names.
Literally, like, metal wouldn't exist without those 4 names.
No, not as we know it.
No, it's
I'm paving the way. So yeah, I've seen them a lot of bands because obviously when they come to the UK, they especially cause my favourite place to go gigging is Birmingham, and that's where Sabbath from. So a lot of times people are like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Especially Corey went off on a tangent about it, about how it was Sabbath that created metal to his.
And to be fair, I don't really think any metal band, even to this day, can say that they're not somewhat inspired by Black Sabbath. It's not possible. It's not possible.
No, but somehow less legendary people from the metal world like yourself seem to think it's fine to state they didn't create metal. But hey, what do you know?
I didn't say that they don't have a part in creating metal. I just don't think that they're that godly, really, that they can be accredited with literally like creating an entire genre.
Is it wrong to be strong? No, but you seem to be strong for being wrong. Thank you for tuning in, guys. I'll see you next week with a new co-host. Someone actually knows stuff about metal.
Oh, watch yourself, boy.
Cool. That's all I got for Sabbath. So a bit of little bit of
Little bit of
history.
inaccurate history there for you.
Most of that Sabbath, not Zeppelin, but thank you.
Oh, well, you know what? You can say what you want. They
Literally at that point, 2 people just cut out off the cast. They're like, I'm done with this shit.
literally
Can't believe Rob's so round.
round day, cunt. So moving on. I mean, yeah, is that everything that you've got to say?
Yeah, so it's not really brief, just about when they started and kind of their influences and the rest.
Fair. Deep Purple also surfaced at that sort of time.
They did.
And obviously definitely less so than Sabbath and Zeppelin, but are still fucking way up there in terms of their...
Definitely iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've definitely got that status. They're just not sort of like godlike iconic.
No.
Like, I mean, even I will agree Sabbath are like godlike iconic. They have like... It's not just about having like a cult following or like a fan base. It's literally like without them... things as like music as we know it, particularly in our genre anyway, wouldn't exist without it. So
Correct. And well,
can we say the same about Deep Purple? Probably not.
no,
I certainly
but
wouldn't.
they're so everyone knows. Pretty much everyone's first riff is "Smoke in the Water."
100%. Yeah, any guitarist has learned to play that song.
Yeah,
100%. So fair. I don't really know too much else about them though. What about yourself?
no.
How much do you know about Judas Priest, who are next on my list, forming in '69? So
some, not much.
Okay.
I'm awful with old bands. I don't really care for them.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Madness. I actually thought that you would have a fair bit to say about Rob Halford, to be honest.
No, I like Judas Priest.
Yeah.
Rob Halford is, I'm guessing he was the first openly gay rock star. That's an assumption. I don't really know many gay rock stars.
Certainly not, like, back then, anyway. I mean, when did he come out, do you know? Like,
No.
roughly? Has it been something that's been, like, the whole time, virtually?
I'm not actually aware. I apologise.
Mostly just because, obviously, coming out in '69 is fucking ironic and hilarious, but also scary as fuck, man.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, yeah, fair play to him. Cool. Did not know... Well, obviously I still don't know when that was, but interesting to find out.
But Priest definitely be a big part
Massively.
of music.
Massively.
Now, in my opinion, they're not actually as recognised as they should be. Whenever you think... Obviously, like, I'm talking about the average person. When you think about... Name some British rock or metal bands. Sabbath, Maiden, Def Leppard, maybe.
Yeah.
No one really goes to Judas Priest.
I mean, I certainly would say that Led Zeppelin are much more worthy of being called metal than Def Leppard, personally. But either way.
Yeah.
But yeah, not many people would say Judas Priest unless they're sort of your typical kind of metalheads that will visit lots of festivals, know a bit about like the bands that they listen to. So like your average music fan that's just like happens to have a bit of a lean towards metal.
Yeah.
Probably not so much, yeah.
There's not as much of a household name.
Yeah, that's probably the best way of putting it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, I mean, fair enough. However, following them very shortly the following year is quite possibly, to me anyway, and probably yourself as well, the biggest name out of all of them, maybe bar Sabbath in the sense of their outreach in terms of inspiration, but Queen, man.
Queen.
I literally can't think of anyone that would think, like, be trying to think of, you know, like British rock or metal bands or anything of that sort of nature. I mean, it's fair to say that Queen have an element of pop about them as well, to a degree.
Well, whether I voice this high, I don't quite know. I
don't know.
I don't know. Pop.
Elements of pop.
Is that because of the popularity they had? Or is it because what was that? Or because of you think they actually sound poppy? Because I don't know if that's a tough one. It's a good one. It's a tough one though.
I would not be surprised at all if you could find. I always forget the bassist's name from Queen.
Roger Taylor.
No.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Brian May.
No, Adam. Someone. But yeah, so he.
Sure. There's another Adam. There's Adam Lambert now, but that's the singer.
You're so off the mark, it hurts.
But I'm not off the mark. I just don't think there's another Adam in there. Something tells me there's not. Perhaps a Bruce. Let's just say random name.
I'm going to look it up, Bruce, until miraculously we get confirmation from the room. No, I'm going to look it up because it's really, really bugging me, and I don't need to.
No. I'm going to go with one of the people I said.
John Deacon!
I can't see it far.
So, him.
Yes. I don't think I've ever heard the name.
We are so good at what we do. Yeah, so he didn't write too much of the music, but one song that he did write, and I wouldn't be surprised if you can literally find somewhere on the internet him quoting that he wrote it as a pop riff.
Okay.
Another One Bites the Dust.
Tune.
It is a tune, but stylized and written as a pop song. Played with instruments, so it's not shit.
Yeah.
But it's a pop song.
See, this is getting into like a mini possible debate, but so something being written in a way does not necessarily mean that it was performed that way. And
it does if it was recorded that way as well. In my mind, if you record a song in a certain way to get a certain sound, that is you going after a pop sound, a rock sound, a heavy metal sound.
So would you say he was successful in creating that pop sound? Because if he intends to do it... does that mean it's successful? If I went into a room and I was like, oh, I'm going to create a grime track, and then screamed, just because I went into the recording with an intention to make a grime track.
I mean, you
not
actually
I did
have
it.
to like write and perform and record the music in the way that you're going to. You can't just be like, I'm going to go in and
But
produce like an opera classic
my
and
point.
then go and twiddle a fucking banjo. No, because that doesn't really
You
add
leave
up.
my
does
banjo alone. Yeah, but so he went in there with the attempt to make a pop song, but did he make a pop song?
It's fair to say that things can be recorded and like written in a certain way and not actually achieve that. But in some ways, it depends on how you're going to define pop in that sense, really. For instance, Smells Like Teen Spirit, Nirvana.
If you're about to drop a pop bombshell on me with that song, I'm going to tell you you're wrong.
Nevermind was, despite it, in my opinion, like my genuine opinion is that record is not pop. Nevermind. It was recorded as a pop record.
Okay. I mean,
we'll look into this. We'll look into this.
because
But
I just think, when I think pop, I associate like dancey style music, not like rave dance, but
it's not the true
upbeat
definition
and-
of pop. Beatles were pop.
I mean,
Pop rock.
pop rock and pop is still two different things.
Yeah, but it's pop because it's pop.
How do you define pop?
Popular.
Pop, anything can be popular. Fucking in the metal world, Slipknot are popular. It doesn't mean they're pop in metal.
No, you're right, it doesn't. But, I mean, by definition, they are.
I mean,
Because pop means popular. We're getting wildly tangented anyway, like... Queen of Good.
Queen are fucking great.
Imagine
finding someone that doesn't like Queen. Yeah, imagine that.
Oh, look, we've just been cut off.
And yeah, I've got to remember he's a tech guy.
So, yeah, I mean...
Manson dildo behind me again.
beating you on the head.
Beating is the worst word you could use. Beating one off. Anyway,
Wow.
so yeah, it's a bit of a history on Queen.
Yeah, please, because as a band, I don't know the greatest deal about them. I do want to go and see the movie, though.
Yeah, I really do. So, again, short little history for them. They were formed in 1970, and they were on one. In the first 5 years together,
Yep,
they had released 7 albums.
that's insane.
That's, yeah, like,
That's even more than fucking Five Finger.
yeah, I think, well, just about. Yeah, for a sort of an average band, I know it's typical for you to bring them up, but it's the first one to put in mind. Avenged have 7 albums. They've been together 19 years. A19.
A19. A whole 19.
Yeah. So going on this basis from this factoid I have from 2016, and I've checked lots of places and lots of places said something different, so I'm going with this as correct in 2016, but might be entirely wrong. Queen's greatest hits album is the best-selling album of all time in the UK.
Interesting.
Yes.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, not by a long shot. It'd be interesting to see if that is actually accurate, but
Well,
crazy.
That
Did it
was
say how
thought.
many million units?
it did. I didn't write it down. I feel like it was like 20 million, but I think I might be wrong.
That would be fucking nuts.
Or 18 million, maybe.
But then when you think about it, again, no advertisement intended, but a really popular Rockstar game that has recently come out sold more copies than that in its first weekend.
Yep, it's the most selling thing of all things in entertainment.
In entertainment, I don't think it beat GTA.
I'm certain I saw things.
Wow, crazy.
Anywho, so yeah, that's top. So yeah, best-selling. It's the greatest hits album, best-selling album in the UK of all time. The Beatles, which we'll quickly fly back to them.
Yep.
That sits at number 3 with Sgt. Pepper.
Fair.
And wedged in between Queen and Beatles is ABBA's greatest hits album.
Fantastic.
Fun
Fair
fact. And a little fact that most people know: Freddie Mercury died in 1991, and that was I think they had 1 album since.
Yeah, maybe 2. I'm not sure. But
So everyone knows Freddie Mercury died of AIDS. It was actually the official cause of death was pneumonia, brought on from the AIDS.
from
AIDS.
a
Good
severe
old Abe. But,
world.
yeah. And
Follow me.
he refused it, the world kind of knew, like people were reporting it was AIDS, and he refused it until the day before his death, where he penned a statement admitting everything, and then he died a day later.
Yeah, I mean that is a true testament to the fact that people literally. You can kind of tell, I guess, within yourself, can't you? Really, when you feel like, right, I'm just getting weaker and stuff like, and it probably is that sort of moment where you're basically left with the choice, like, do you depart from the world, like seeking ignorance, or do you just accept fate and get a chance to say goodbye in the way that everyone? I mean, to be fair, by that point in time, they were huge.
Absolutely, yeah.
And obviously played. I can never remember if it was Live Aid or Live 8 first.
It was like Aid.
Right, so they played the massive set then, didn't they? Was that his hologram performance? Was that him, like, on the... Was that after his death, or was it just before?
Before his death.
Wembley.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was him.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's like a live DVD of it, I think. Or at least a CD, and you wouldn't really release a live CD of a hologram, because it'd just be recordings, wouldn't it? So I thought on Queen. So yeah, I guess why would you release a CD?
That was just how you said it. And then just carry on, sir.
So there's probably more to the story that I haven't looked into it, but I'm guessing. So obviously, AIDS was quite new back in the 90s. Right, it wasn't a massive thing. He was diagnosed with HIV in 1990, I believe, a year before his death. And I'm guessing, like, obviously we associate gay AIDS is associated with voice. It's my voice. That sounded really weird.
This is not the time to be laughing, man. Full dome fucking meltdown, like. Are you alright? Do you need a drink?
I need a fucking break. Right, what?
You're fucking crying.
Jesus.
Right.
Literally, well, no. Okay. So he...
Where were you fucking going with that then?
Right, so AIDS.
Should we move on? Should we leave this one here? AIDS is bad, okay? Jesus Christ.
Fucking Christ. Yeah, do you want the next one? I'll come back to this in a bit.
I wasn't prepared. I haven't even found where the next one is. Fuck.
Right, we're doing it now. AIDS is associated with gay sex. Please don't laugh.
I'm sorry. You fucking hypocrite.
AIDS is associated with gay sex, and that is the problem that they have. Beavis and Bad, nice. And that was, I guess, in the 90s, obviously, especially compared to now, but being gay was not okay.
No, definitely not. As we were saying with Rob Halford as well. Like, if he was to have come out way back then, that's fucking brave, man. And, yeah. Pussy. Anyway, gay sex.
Yes. Right, now that I've chilled the fuck out, I'd like to point out the reason I started laughing was not because of gays or sex or AIDS. My voice started doing a funny thing. I laughed about it, and then you said something. I don't remember what it was, but it made me die. So...
Just sounded like you had, like, you know when you get like a bubble caught in your throat or something, but it was just the fact that like your lip was quivering as well.
I was trying to talk.
Maybe that should be this episode name, just
So yeah, massive unfortunate thing. They had
episode 27.
He had an album. He appeared on stage. I think it was at the Brit Awards of '91. And he was all obviously very gaunt and stuff like that.
Yellow as fuck.
Yep. And
kidney failure.
He was just to accept the award for outstanding contribution to music, which is obviously fairly fucking due. And the final song they recorded, I think, was The Show Must Go On. Aptly named. And this was a point where Brian May was far too worried about, like, he was just way too weak.
Yeah,
Right.
Certainly couldn't get up on stage and act and do all of that stuff, because by that point as well, he had been in theatre. He had done things in theatre by that point as well.
Yeah.
So he couldn't do any of that anymore. He could barely even go into the studio and sing. Like, that was like an arduous process for him recording the last song. I know that
Yeah.
much.
He, Brian May almost was going to not record, I believe, or really try and work a way around it because he had no faith in Freddie to
That's
be
crazy.
able to do it. And then he came into the recording booth and nailed the recording. Smashed it out, apparently.
Which, yeah, to be fair, I mean, the band obviously knew that he was in a bad state. I think he had sort of spoken about things with the band by that point. Yeah, it's sad, man, to be fair. Well, all of the best ones, really.
Yeah.
But there you have it. Is that it for
That's what I've got for the Queen. Well, not the Queen, just
not,
Queen.
Not the Queen. Right, who was next on my fucking list? I really should have laid these out better, I'm sorry. Fucking, right, so a brief mention needs to be thrown in between Queen and the next guys. Akadaka. Obviously credited as being an Australian band. But obviously notable members, the Young Brothers, are Glaswegian.
Yes, Scotland.
So worth a brief mention. I don't know too much about their history. Do you?
I mean, you definitely... Yeah, I know I don't. I know that they are... While they were born in England, yeah, they are known as an Australian band. They were moved to Australia and formed a band then. Other than that, no. I just know they're a bit egotistic.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I was going to say, I know why you're saying that. Cool, so we move on then to Iron Maiden.
Yes, Iron
Maiden. Again, arguably another big name like Sabbath, really, in that sense. Big bands that we have come to know and love in today's scene. Bands like Slipknot, and indeed Corey Taylor has been known to voice his fanboyism of Iron Maiden as well as Sabbath.
Taylor did?
Yeah,
Didn't know that.
yeah, he's a big Maiden fan. Read about it in the first book. So yeah, again, they're not a band that I know too much about the history of. I know Bruce has battled cancer recently.
Yeah.
Might still be
Tony Iommi from Sabbath as well.
Yeah, but there you go. Fuck yeah. But yeah, so I mean, Maiden again, prolific force, massively influential. How would you say then that there was anything that Maiden did by that point that bands like Sabbath perhaps hadn't? Were they genre defining in any way? Bearing in mind that they banded in '75, and I believe that was before Bruce as well.
So they don't really class Maiden as metal. Like, it's tough. I always think they're more of like a hard rock band.
They certainly they can sound like it, I think, but in terms of like the guitar solos and stuff like that, they do have like plenty of metal elements there. And to be fair, a lot of original metal bands, like people could argue that Sabbath don't really sound like metal as we know it to these, like by today's standards, but that's exactly why we're talking about this at the end of the day, is that they were metal at one point. I think it's unquestionable, to be honest. Iron Maiden are prolific metal figures. I can see where you're coming from in the sense that like some of their songs are a lot softer. Like Afraid to Shoot Strangers isn't metal, really, is it? It's
No, I don't class like Fear of the Dark.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Do you think so?
I think so. I 100% think so. Run to the Hills is again another really good one.
Yeah. Oh, they've definitely got metal parts to them. I'm not saying they're not metal whatsoever, that's just silly, but I'm not sure how I feel. But I guess in my mind, I've always chewed my mouth closed. I've also considered that, in like, how I've seen in my head, is the big band of metal is Metallica and the big band of hard rock or classic rock is
Maiden,
yeah.
Interesting. I mean, if the big four were going to be the big five, Would you put them next up?
What, Maiden? No, because the big four was the thrash metal.
Yeah, but I mean it's become like classic metal by nowadays sort of standards. Like Metallica, I still see as a bit different in that, but Slayer, for example, fucking download announcement.
Yeah.
A little bit of news there that we didn't drop in.
No, Lamb of God.
Yeah. Who else? There was another big one that I was... Dream Theater. Smashing. All over that.
Smashing.
Yeah.
And Smashing Pumpkins.
Ugh.
Smashing.
I will fucking smash their pumpkins. Sounds dirtier than I wanted it to. Are we done with Maiden? Is that pretty much
I'm
what we're
done with
saying?
Maiden.
Yeah. Just
I've been
in general.
doing it for a few years, actually, yeah.
That's not very nice indeed. Motorhead. What would you class them as? Because they formed in the same year.
Metal. Wait, yeah.
You are baffling to me.
What?
Iron Maiden are classic rock, but Motorhead are metal.
But it's what's more that that's good. It's got more of that dirty feel to it. Motorhead just feels more metal to me. Well, don't fucking call me Beerflin, right?
Beerflin.
And then what would you class them as?
I mean, I would probably the very, very heaviest side of hard rock if Maiden are rock. But quite frankly, I'd prefer personally to call them both metal bands. But
you would call them metal too? Sugar me baffled.
Puzzle.
First appearance. Yes.
Possibly a little.
Riding cats.
I'm unsure of how to take your statement, sir. I must admit.
Yep, there it was. There it is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, Motorhead. Don't know greatest deal about their history. Do you?
No, they're obviously very, very fucking pinnacle in the UK world and massive for the metal and rock world. Loads of people cite them as influences.
Fair enough. And yeah, to be fair, they've probably got their influence in hard rock bands and metal bands. So
okay.
Fair to say that they could appeal to both.
Mm-hmm.
That's arguable.
Yeah.
So to take a definite departure in terms of genre then, another band that formed in the same year was the Sex Pistols.
The Pistols of Sex.
The Pistols of Sexy Things.
Johnny Lydon. Sid Vicious.
Fucking Sid Vicious, mate. Crazy.
Yeah, the punk scene erupted with probably those at the forefront.
Yeah, a big thing that came out of obviously like Seattle, Washington, LA, obviously as well. Very quickly made its way over here. If anybody has seen a film called The Boat That Rocks, you know what I mean.
Checking it out.
But yeah, so Sex Pistols. I know Anarchy in the UK, which is very aptly named.
Yeah.
What else?
Never mind the buzz bollocks. Even sorry.
Never mind the buzz bollocks.
I was going to say Buzzcocks, but no, it's Never Mind the Bollocks. That's one of their albums.
Fair enough. But yeah, interestingly, Buzzcocks are actually again part of that scene.
Yeah.
And not very long after these guys, I think. The following year, 76, they were in between the Sex Pistols and them, though, to keep on this kind of little genre. Also formed in 76 was the Clash.
Bam.
Bam. Wham, bam, thank you, man. Fuck. I didn't put the Jam.
Jammy bastard.
Do you know anything about the Jam? Not too sure.
I don't know that personally. I know their music a little bit because my dad played it a lot.
Again, yeah, very dad sort of thing. Even my dad was a massive Jam fan. Fair.
Massive Jam fan.
Massive Jam fan, yeah. Jammy Dodger.
Jammy
Fucking hell. But yeah, so the Clash was in between them and, well, the same year as Buzzcocks, which were, again, sort of all in that sort of mod rock punk kind of thing.
And again, like,
Guanin.
some of these, like, again, we don't know much about, but it's always worth a mention of their name because these are all pinnacle bands in the UK
Fuck
scene
yeah.
over the last decade.
I mean, I don't know. So Madness and the Specials, again, like slightly different in terms of genre. Obviously, Ska thing. Ska is a massive movement that happened in the UK.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see if it was something that was like birthed in the UK and sort of mostly stayed in the UK, or if it had like its sort of place elsewhere and it found its way over. Because that's something I don't really know. I've always thought of ska to be like a very British thing.
What did mods listen to? It was punks versus mods, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was mod ska? I'm guessing not, but I just feel like...
No, yeah, I think, yeah, probably. But yeah, you had like mods, rockers, and punks. And...
Yeah.
So yeah.
Greebos and the scene kids of their day.
Pretty much, yeah, the grungies. As I was often referred to for wearing baggy flared jeans with a chain.
Oh, the chain.
All about the chain. So worth mentioning, obviously, Madness and the whole ska movement as well. But I don't, again, though, they're bands that my dad would listen to. I haven't listened to a great deal of them. But what I know by bands like that is very good. I can see why it has its appeal.
Yeah, for sure.
So we move on to the Police. Were obviously a good, strong trio that I think a lot of people like to think or forget that actually came from the UK.
Yeah.
I think they're a prime example of a band that had instantly more success in the US than here, though.
Yeah. My mum's a fan of the Police.
They're really good. I don't really... I take issue with Sting, really, because he is literally the definition of an egotist.
It's Gordon Sumner.
But, yeah, like, Sting and the Police. What's the point? You were the police before, just stay the police.
Yeah.
Fucking douchebaggingston. But yeah, other than that, really good bands. So they were definitely worth mentioning on here.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, mate. Just trying to see who is next.
So while you look at that, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So with certain bands, I'm going to pick Queen versus the Beatles here.
Right.
Right, as they are two we've already mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, I would say, at the time of them being at their highest, the Beatles were bigger than Queen were. Obviously, it's different time periods, but if you look at the numbers for Beatles at its highest, they were like insane amount of fandom, and they had a lot of love. A whole lot of love. And Queen also had a lot of fan and a lot of love, but probably not as big as the Beatles did. Would you agree with that?
I think mostly the only difference between them, suffice to say, if Queen sounded the way that they were when the Beatles had formed, so if they had formed at the time that the Beatles did and sounded like Queen still,
yeah,
I think they would have smashed the shit out of the Beatles, because
Probably.
the only real thing that had, like, that people were attracted to with the Beatles, obviously the music was good, but it was just that nothing else really existed like it at the time.
Yeah.
Queen are very different to the Beatles, and in my opinion, while the Beatles have got that kind of psychedelic, trippy shit going on in some of their songs, that doesn't really make it interesting to me.
No.
Whereas everything about Queen is mildly interesting to me, at least.
Yeah.
It's fucking great, man.
So I would say that the Beatles probably a big at that time, but the actual question I was going for was, today, I would say the Queen have a lot bigger of a history, a lot bigger of a fandom now. Like, yeah, it's less time since Queen formed than the Beatles formed. But I would say that their appreciation is a lot higher. And I feel like they did more for music, personally.
You see, now that's where I would probably... Yeah, that's where I would draw my line. I think more people know about what Queen did for music than what Beatles did for music. But bands like Queen very likely would not have existed without the Beatles before them.
You think so?
100%. Music, you need to understand that, like, the Beatles were literally not just like a massively big band, they were like, trying to think of like a word that's actually like weighted enough in what I'm trying to say, but essentially they changed everything about music.
But that's just because they happened to be at the right time period.
No, there's more to do with the fact that before then, music was very much like you follow pretty strict rules when you're writing music, up until the Beatles were just like, no, we're going to do whatever the fuck we want. Definitely the first band to be like, who gives a shit? Do you know what I mean? Like, we were going to put it out because it sounds good to us, kind of thing, and we're just going to let the brain do the work.
But, okay, so pushing back to your point before, say Beatles, rather than Queen being out at the same time as Beatles, say Beatles came out at the same time as Queen, so music had already changed, established in the rockier ways. and Beatles had the exact same career they did, but just in the 70s instead of the 60s.
Right.
Do you still think that they were that influential? I know it's hard to judge something like that because
it is really hard to judge something like that because timing is everything in that sense.
Yeah, it is.
In terms of like the amount of outreach their influence had, yeah, timing is everything.
But would you say that like overall at this moment, Queen are bigger in 2018?
Definitely at the minute, because if nothing else, they've still got films being made about them and stuff like that.
True, yeah. I guess
There's all sorts of external factors that could make this a really difficult question to answer. I think the heart or the core of the question that I think you're asking is basically like, yes, in this day and age, Queen are more recognised because they're a much more recent thing than the Beatles. And also the Beatles were like responsible for changing everything about the music scene. We now are basically assessing what kind of a job Queen would do in the music scene through the path that the Beatles had already laid. So I personally think we wouldn't have bands like the Queen, like Queen without the Beatles.
yeah.
So in that sense,
That's definitely correct. Again, I don't want to put down the Beatles because they're obviously very fucking influential, but I just try to imagine what it would be like in a different time period if they would actually be the same.
it's hard to say, is essentially the answer to the question. Really hard to say. But I think if somehow music had already managed to have been changed, and like people in the 70s were still writing music and Queen came out and were writing music the way that they were by then, yeah, I don't think the Beatles would have stood much of a chance, basically.
Cool.
Making a nice departure back into strictly metal, a band that are quite frequently forgotten about, Saxon.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that they were British.
Do you not?
No, I really didn't. I think, like, obviously I knew that they were British before this. This was like one of those bands that I was like, I have to mention those because most other people wouldn't. So I knew that they were British before we did this, but I know it is something that when I found it out relatively recently, I wouldn't like to guess when, I was like, shit, didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I've never seen them live, so there could be things that like gave it away at a live show. Like there might be another Iron Maiden sort of thing where they're waving around British flags and stuff. I don't know. Who the fuck knows? But yeah, I thought they were definitely worth at least an honourable mention because still pretty prolific. They're still playing gigs to this day, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so.
So fair play to them. Considering they formed in 77, that's a pretty good career. Whitesnake, I've got down next. So what? It'd be interesting actually. What would you count Whitesnake as?
Classic rock.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
The hair rock. I wouldn't even like to say hair metal really because they're not, but the hair rock.
Hair rock.
Hair rock.
Do you smell what hair rock is cooking?
No. So yeah, Whitesnake, again, don't know anything about them. Thought they were worth a mention though because still a really big name that have...
Did I use my pen earlier?
Probably. Do you want to borrow this one, sir?
Yes, please.
There you are.
Is that my pen?
No, because it was in my pad.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Glad we could hash that one out. Who have I got next? You're writing something that makes me rather nervous to be writing something else this late on.
Your last rights.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Stone Roses.
Thank you. I didn't write anything. Ah!
It was your pen.
It was. Ha Tomfoolery.
I know, right?
Sorry, yes, carry on. Stone Roses.
Stone Roses are who I have up next. Again, not a big fan. I don't outwardly dislike them or anything.
Don't just care for them, yeah.
Haven't listened to them really over the years. They've got Fool's Gold, which is a fucking tune. And it will be one of those ones that you'll put on and everyone recognises like the little guitar part to it. But that's about it.
Okay.
Worth a mention though.
Earlier.
Yeah.
Right.
Worth a mention though. So we move on to who is 26th. Oh wait.
Def Leppard.
No, they were actually. I haven't got those on the list, but they definitely deserve a mention. I don't know when they were formed.
No, because when you hit Whitesnake, I was like, oh, I don't know. I thought Whitesnake were after Def Leppard, but there you go. Oh,
they could very well be. Yeah. I've actually forgotten to put those on this list because I'm so good at this topic. But yeah, so Stone Roses is actually where it kind of ends for me in terms of the oldies, and that was 83. So they were actually quite late on in this kind of movement. So there you have it. But yeah, Def Leppard definitely worth a mention for sure. Don't know,
Yeah, definitely.
Don't know too much about them, but yeah, download.
They seem to be in the business of pouring sugar on themselves or asking people to do it for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it more that they're telling people, do we think?
Good point.
And is it in the name of hatred? Moving on. So that's kind of like 83 is where I decided to sort of stop the chronology of oldies there. So there are definitely other bands that came out of the UK in between now and the next band, which for me, I'm just going to double check to make sure that I've got this right. So I think it was you that actually originally said this first earlier, but do we agree that Oasis and bands of that kind of caliber were kind of like the bridge between, obviously in a different genre, but that was basically what the UK became very strongly known about. So
it's one of the biggest English bands or British bands of all time.
kicking aside strictly metal genre, because again, as we will probably get into later, some people would argue that Prodigy aren't metal or rock, but
big in the metal world.
Yeah, they are, and I agree with that. They actually started in 90.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so they're first on this little list here, and they have still remained to be like a big force.
Yeah, so I'm live on Wednesday.
100%. How did that go, by the way?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. How much of the new album did they play?
7 songs. I mean, we'll talk about the album later, but it was good to see some of the old songs.
Maybe I'm grimacing because that's not enough. Maybe it's too much.
Who knows?
Stay tuned to find out. But yeah, so Oasis shortly after in 91. Don't even need to know much about Oasis to know how fucking massive they huge. Actually are. Yeah. So it will interest you to know, because we've already been talking about them, that they had a lot of weight as a band. The brothers, both of them, had a lot of weight. Prodigy are from my hometown, Essex. Isn't that bad?
I mean,
no, not at all. That's pretty cool.
Okay. Essex is alright, I guess.
You want to watch yourself, Sonny Jim? My mother watches this sometimes and she'll slap you.
She's from Essex?
Yeah.
Well. No, it gets a bad name for me, a bit trashy, doesn't it? But I'm sure it's
fine. Massively. I'm sure it's not, but have you ever been to Southend?
I've never been to Essex. I never planned to go to Essex.
Fair enough.
Your mother has literally just started watching. That is the funniest thing.
Scary. Did somebody say Essex?
What are they saying about my hometown?
So, majorly influenced by the Beatles were Oasis. Did you know?
I didn't know.
Massively. Like to the point where they openly on record would say, we are doing everything within our power, basically, to be the next Beatles.
Okay.
So I definitely know about Noel. I'm not too sure so much about Liam, but Noel Gallagher definitely is like fucking John Lennon obsessed. Perhaps not nowadays, but certainly when their career started out. And it's worth knowing as well that Liam actually started the band. So it was Liam's band at first, and Noel had been being like a roadie and played like guitar in other bands and stuff. He was out on the road with people touring. Oi, oi, yeah, you literally just missed it. Yeah, like he had been out on the road being like roadies for other bands and stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, Liam basically asked him to join, and Noel like was sat there watching Liam's band at the time. I'm not sure if they were called Oasis or if it was just what Oasis came to be.
Right.
But he was like watching them practice basically after he had come back from like touring with another band, and was basically like, your band's shit. I'll join and I'll make it better, but you need to let me write the songs. Okay. To which he begrudgingly agreed, and there's that kind of, you've probably heard throughout Oasis history that the brothers have had a bit of a rivalry and a bit of a thing going on there. Perhaps it started there. Your band's shit, let me write and it won't be shit. I can see as the brother in that sort of circumstance that you're going to be like, wow, dick. But yeah, so
especially when he proved him right.
Yeah, massively. But went on to be, obviously, like you said, proved them right, and went on to be genre defining. Definitely the biggest name, in my opinion, in the whole sort of indie rock kind of scene there, really, or just, it's hard, really. What would you call them?
I was literally going to ask this question because I found it quite interesting. Because I was like, what's wrong with it? And it's like a particular genre popped into mind. I would classify Oasis as pop.
Interesting. Yeah. I would, actually.
And I've got a good thesis behind this, which I just thought of myself. It's because pop stands for popular. And Oasis was super popular. Quote me.
Cunt. I mean, I'm going to argue, really, because that's what I do.
That's fine.
You're on the other end of things.
Slipknot are not new metal. I'm joking, we're not getting into this now.
Right, so Oasis. I would say that they are like prolific names, even if they don't deserve to be or whatever. And I agree that some of
prolific
their
for sure.
Yeah, but I mean like don't deserve to be prolific in indie if they're not indie rock, or if they're just rock, or if they've done a lot, to be honest. And I'm not going to lie to you. Yes, some of their songs are recorded in a pop setting, in a pop environment.
Pop environment? They've got fucking the word popular on the wall. Well, love, it's a very popular environment. Next door is a black room, so that's a metal environment. What the fuck is a pop environment?
Sound settings and stuff like that, when you're recording in like certain acoustics. Look, go and do some music production and then try and come back with a leg to stand on, alright? But right now,
Whoa, big boy.
Fucking peg leg. You haven't...
I'm Rob, I'm hard.
Good comeback.
Thanks, man. Thought of myself.
Do you have anything else to say that's actually like mildly interesting that somebody might give a fuck about?
I just noticed, thank God it's dark outside, otherwise this would not be a metal setting for this podcast.
Right, that's very true.
It's giving you really good acoustics.
They are.
Yeah.
You need to shut up now. Like, the only person that thinks you're funny is you, and that's
fine.
bad.
I'll make one person laugh, I'm happy.
God, you sound like my girlfriend.
Don't put me under that umbrella.
Why not? I thought that was why I was your
I don't want to
co-host.
sound like anyone's girlfriend.
Fair enough. So yeah, that's Oasis. That's my little take on Oasis, really. I would not like to hazard a guess on how many units worldwide they've sold, but fucking
not a clue.
Loads. Fucking loads, no doubt. And they were 91, shortly followed by Stereophonics. Not a band that I know too much about, but...
I saw them live at the Shania Twain show. Not her own show, the festival thing for BBC.
Yeah,
I saw her. They opened the festival, it was very strange, really good. But other than that, I couldn't tell you much about them.
No.
Definitely got a name behind them, of course.
Massively.
We're mentioning them.
And in terms of like lyrically, the way that their songs are written is fucking awesome. But they're a band that I haven't really been able to get that much into off my own back. But yeah, so they formed shortly after. And then I haven't numbered these, so I am literally going to be cycling through dates right now. We fucking missed one.
Did we?
Cradle of Filth.
Yes, 91.
Yeah. Mate, fucking how...
Entirely. So they're probably the heaviest band on the fucking list.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, so Mr. Filth.
I definitely think they're a pop band.
The wrong setting.
Yeah, definitely.
Do some sound production and then come back to me.
Right, okay, cool. I'll do that.
Do you know what production they had?
Gothic.
I mean, I don't actually know the answer to this. I was wondering if you did.
What production they had?
What kind of setting?
Shut up.
I wouldn't want to assume their genre.
No.
Did you just assume my genre? That was it. That was it.
Oh, fucking excellent. You're writing it down as well. That's how you know it's one that you definitely want to remember. Did you just assume my genre?
Oh, mate.
It's fair to say that it literally wouldn't surprise me if, like, actually speaking, it wouldn't surprise me if some Cradle songs were recorded in, like, a church or something to get that kind of, like, real deep acoustic kind of setting with it. So in that sense, you're mocking me, and I get that. Well done. But it could actually be very well true in this case. Like, they are a band that would do stuff like that, 100%. But I was shocked to find out that they'd formed in 91. I thought that they were a little bit later than that, at least.
Yeah, I remember that was my year of birth, so...
Yeah, and you've been a fan, if not still a fan, over the years.
Yeah, I don't really know many of the new albums, but I like their old stuff. So
yeah,
to it.
Fair. So yeah, sorry that we forgot to mention those.
Yeah, that was filthy.
Hey. Muse are another band that we should mention.
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Neither of us fans, in case you couldn't tell.
Not the worst.
Not the worst. Certainly no Bring Me. But, light show, definitely worth it. 100%. I've seen them live once for the lights.
I saw them at Download, yeah?
I didn't go to that Download, no.
Oh, did you not?
Wait, what year was that? 2013?
No, 2016, I think.
Yeah, I didn't see them there. I've seen them at Reading, maybe?
I thought I'd give them a go because I heard their stage show's really good. I was there for a song or two and then left. Because I just hate the sound of Muse.
The lights are cool. That's fair enough. They do put on like a bit of a show in that sense, but not a band for me. But they actually formed in '94, which I didn't realise they were that early on either.
Yeah.
What?
Sorry, I just laugh about previous moments on this podcast.
Okay.
I'm actually laughing at the title name again, the genre thing.
Did you just assume my genre? Just going through, so obviously, like, as we get sort of more into the noughties, I guess you'll sort of take the con, really, because you know a lot about bands like Bring Me, well, not them specifically, but around that sort of era.
I want to keep it the same kind of way you've done it with the classics, but these aren't. I've got them in kind of like two blocks. So I've got the early 2000s, and I've got the recent years. Now, some of the recent year bands will have formed in the early 2000s, possibly even earlier. I don't think so though. But I am going to talk about them separately, like, because of in the recent years, it's kind of who's popular and still going now. Whereas in the early 2000s part, it's kind of bands that have deceased or are still, one of them still about. So a couple of them still about, actually. So we'll start off with the pile of shit. Lost Prophets.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll say pile of shit. Just one member. We have nothing against the other members, of course. It's a shame they didn't get any further in their careers. But
yeah,
Lost Prophets were a staple in British music in the early 2000s. They headlined Download 2006, I want to say.
Really?
I think so.
Jesus.
Download 2006 was Tool, Guns N' Roses, and I think it was Lost Prophets.
That's fucking mental. I know they banded in 97.
Right, okay.
So they'd been a band for what, like... So this was 06, you reckon?
Yeah, I think they headlined Download 06.
So that's a pretty fucking short time of being a band to headline a festival like
yeah,
Download.
For sure, man. So... Oh no, I lied. It was 2008.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Even still, though, I mean, that's...
11 years, still pretty good.
Yeah.
So... Yeah, we're not going to go into the grim shit. It's already been spoken about in this podcast multiple times and once in detail. Check it out. So yeah, they were huge within Britain. They were soft rock
in the world.
Yeah, they were rock. They were rock bands
with pop elements.
Yeah, pop elements and
emo elements and
yeah, definitely emo elements. For them to rise that quickly, it was so. I would say in the early 2000s, it got a bit dormant in rock. There wasn't much going on. This was also during the height of nu metal, kind of. Well, it was as nu metal was dying off, and that's where bands started coming in. Now there were obviously we mentioned it here. We'll mention it shortly with the rise of metalcore, but we'll get onto that with a couple of bands later on. But for standardised rock, you got still obviously your legends like Maiden who are still making music. Sabbath were on a break at this point, but for new rock, nothing was really happening, and that's where Lost Prophets were part of the movement that came in.
Mm. Why do you think it was like widely received though?
Because it's soft enough to be acceptable to play on radio, and hard enough that it was still our scene.
Mm. Yeah, certainly. Like some of the earlier albums, I mean, had like heavy vocals and stuff like that in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll agree with that. But it's just a shame really, because obviously the way that things went in the end is disgusting.
Of course, yeah.
It does leave the rest of the band sort of struggling to make a career for themselves.
Yeah, it does now, definitely. I know that I think it was 2004, so only 7 years after they formed, they were headlining Brixton.
Wow.
Because they had a tour with Avenged and someone else. I can't remember who the other one was. before I was a fan, or before I was a fan big enough to know what was going on. And I was never a fan of the Lost Prophets, thankfully. I never had to go through that heartbreak of this crime. Anywho, so I feel like going from just 4 years from Brixton to headlining Download, if there are a lot more bands around creating music, or there's a bigger scene in rock, then they may never have had that spot.
They might not have even really made it to Brixton.
Yeah, possible.
Who knows?
On top of the list there, I've got we've been mentioning England a lot because predominantly most of the music is from England. I couldn't find a single Northern Ireland band worth talking about in our genre, really. It's a lot of Ireland, but they're not part of the UK, so. And
Flogging Molly?
Are they Northern Ireland?
I would have to double check, but that's pretty much the only band that I can think of.
Right. Scotland was a bit small, but Wales, we have the Blackout.
Ugh. Not who I thought we were going to move on to.
No, not yet.
When did they form?
I don't know.
That's probably good.
But they didn't last that long, I don't think. I think they had like maybe a 10-year spout.
Still bad enough.
Yeah, not a fan. Now, whereas you saw Architects do the Jump the Fuck Up thing, it was the Blackout introduced me to Jump the Fuck Up on the same day Slipknot first headline download in 09. And I didn't know that Slipknot did this. So when they did it, I was like, no, they're just standing. When Slipknot did it, I was down to the floor.
Yeah, 100%.
So Blackout, just a quick mention of them because they did get quite a rise through the Kerrang era of pushing bands.
Yeah, they were definitely like, when we were saying about the press thing the other week, they were a band that was sprung to mind when I read that Kerrang was slated as like jumping on to bands and like sticking with like what was current kind of thing, and that they were like really like regarded as being that magazine that just liked to keep up with like playing favourites basically, and like Glory supporting.
Yeah,
Blackout were a band that immediately jumped to my head.
Yeah.
So.
And another band that's not currently with us is The Gallows. They got huge in the UK, on the UK scene. Frank Carter's now with his band Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes.
Yeah, doing another Sting in the Police.
Yeah, but that band's doing pretty well. My best mate really enjoys them. So going on to bands that are still around, but sticking from why I put them in the early years to know why. Double A, Arsenal Alexandria.
Yeah,
I've literally until a couple of weeks ago thought they were American, but they're not.
No,
now Norfolk, I think.
Something like that. Yeah, I know. Danny has lived in America for more of his career than he's lived in Britain now, I think. But
yeah, is that War Snop? Whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. So yeah, they're worth mentioning because they're still on the rise. They're going places slowly but surely.
Yeah,
they've actually had a few member changes recently.
Well, yeah, Danny actually left the band for an album. I think.
He did, and then they got him back because the guy they had with them was shit, apparently.
Yeah, they lost a lot of fans in that time, and I don't necessarily think the newest album is enough to claw him back.
It sounds really Fall Out Boy. I've never been a fan of them, to be honest.
They've got a couple of good songs on the new album, but I'm not like I've listened to it front to back a couple of times and just
yeah. Bullet from Valentine.
Yes, so another fucking prolific force coming from Wales.
Yeah, massive. Probably the biggest Welsh band I can think of.
Yeah, 100%. We're both like
straining our minds. Yeah, no. So they come from
Bridgend
in Wales and
Bridgewater.
No, I think Bridgend is correct. That sounds right.
Don't know. Couldn't double check. Not too familiar with the lay of the land of the old Wales.
They started back in '98, I think, as Jeff Killed John.
Yes,
and they have risen through the ranks. They're playing arenas again now, I think. So they went from They went up to arenas, then they dropped down to like a lot smaller, and then they played Brixton again. And I think they've gone back to arenas again with their newest release, Gravity. Awful stuff. But they obviously started in what is my favourite period of time for music, which is the early 2000s metalcore. And you got whenever it's discussed, when someone asks like the metalcore big four of that era, it's going to be Avenged, Bullet, Trivium, and Killswitch.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I've got many an argument on the Loudwire page where I said that, and people go ape shit about it. So
why?
Bullet and Avenged were never fucking metalcore. I'm like, kind of helped metalcore rise.
Yeah, 100%.
At the time. Metalcore's changed, as we'll speak about it again in a bit with the band. But Bullet, yeah, their rise was huge, and they were coming front page of Kerrang's Metal Hammers and so on. And for them, it was obviously very good.
Yeah.
Now, they've been up and down, currently down with album releases, not a fan whatsoever.
No, Gravity is shite.
No, and Temper was probably even worse.
Do you reckon?
I think so. It's close though. They're both equally fucking awful. And unfortunately, Matt Tugg has the ego the size of a horse's cock. Yeah, not keen.
Yeah, it's unfortunately I didn't really have like much in the way of like sort of high hopes for the new album, and it dropped, and it was even worse than I thought it could
Have you
be.
listened to the whole thing? You have. Yeah.
It's disgraceful. And what's with the dubstep? What's with all
on
that
the
shit on the
deluxe
end?
version, and covering Radioactive.
Yeah, not a fan. I mean, I mentioned that last week.
Yeah,
Last episode.
yeah.
Craziness.
So that's what got for the early 2000s. So Bullet, they were a force to be reckoned with.
100%. Like the Poison days.
Yeah, Poison was incredible. Is incredible. Unfortunately, with Gravity, fans are going along with it instead of where Temper, the fans are like, nope, people are loving Gravity, and I just don't get it.
Are they really?
Yeah, there are a lot of people are. It's a fucking shame.
That's crazy.
So let's go on to a few quick names, and then we'll go on to a final few big names to top the topic off.
Yeah.
Before I ask a few questions at the end. So, Ailstorm. They're a Scottish band.
Scottish.
They're
a Scottish band.
Scottish pirate band.
metal, they are.
Yeah, so I thought giving a shout out for number one, Scotland has to have something mentioned, and
I mean, we could go with Biffy Clyro, but we won't.
I didn't even think about them. I try not to be honest. Now,
I'm a bigger fan of Biffy than you are by a long mile, I think. But...
the fact you are a fan of Biffy means you're more a fan. So, yeah, they're completely. I'll say unique. The genre is kind of unique to a lot of other genres, but there's a lot of bands within the genre at the moment. A lot of Bloodstock style bands that play pirate metal. Well, pirate metal bands play Bloodstock.
Like tavern metal almost, isn't it? Like
Sort
that
of,
kind of like raise a flag and
drink and raise your that. We've got While She Sleeps. They're still on the rise. They're still getting really big. So they're
new
doing
album
drops.
A
Week or two ago.
Last week, I think. Yeah. And yeah, that seems to be having pretty major success at the minute.
Yep, we've got Creeper. Who have been the reason recently because they're it's the last of a tour show, but probably not. So they're going to be getting on. I don't know what's going on with my body today. I had like 3 burps at the same time, and I didn't know how to stop it, and I thought it was going to puke. So yeah, they're another band, Creeper. They're going up in the ranks. They're still a small time band, but they're definitely a rock band, and they're rising through the ranks. If they haven't stopped, which they probably haven't, we'll hear more from them in the future.
So they only recently formed, didn't they? Or like
a couple of years back.
2014.
Yeah, around that, I guess.
Yeah, mad. Dragon Force, what were we going to say about them?
Dragon Force, yeah, they've been a staple in British music. They've never been massive. Obviously, their one song, Through the Fire and Flames of Guitar Hero, got them a lot bigger. And Herman Lee. So it says.
You went to.
And
Guitar
Hero. And Herman Lee's a beast on the guitar.
Both of them are, to be fair. Sam, that guy, the other guy. Yeah, they're both fucking mad.
Yeah,
mad guitarists.
I don't know what's going on.
Oh no, sister.
Conjurer.
Affair.
They're another band that are very small, but they are mentioned quite a lot recently. I think they are. I don't want to say it's wrong. I think they're black metal or death metal. They're heavy as fuck, right? And they're going places. They're rising up in their world.
Fair.
Yeah, very quickly as well. So we've already mentioned Frank Collin Rattlesnakes. So before we go on to one particular big band at the end, because I've got a fair bit to say about them. Let's go on to... two bands. Let's go on to our local scene, to us. So Milton Keynes is where we're from, is where we are right now. And we have giants such as Tesseract.
Yep.
Heart of a Coward.
Yep.
And Hacktivist.
Yep.
And I'm going to shout out, of course, to Opia, who are still brand new with only 2 songs out. Check our reaction video for that. And they will be rising, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll be fucking shocked. I'll be shocked if they don't. But yeah, I mean, Tesseract were actually probably like the biggest bands that have been sort of quoted with their origins as Milton Keynes. I'm not actually sure if the whole band are. I don't think the whole band are from MK at all. I was under the impression it was like 1 or 2 members. But yeah, certainly like the biggest name that's been cited as coming from Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
So far.
What, Tesseract?
Yeah, I still think that they...
Do you think so? Do you think it's Heart of a Coward?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Tesseract have been a band for a lot longer as well.
Yeah, Heart of a Coward supported Machine Head on tour in the UK.
I'd be interested. I haven't actually really looked into who Tesseract have supported, but they have had their own like headline shows and like tech fests and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. True.
Whereas Heart of a Coward, I don't think have headlined any festivals yet.
No, not to my knowledge anyway. Apart from Proper Stock, which is Milton Keynes Festival. Doesn't really count. Now, Hacktivist been on the rise. They've opened Reading Festival. They've played Soundwave Festival in Australia.
Yeah, I was at their first Reading Festival show actually.
Oh, were you?
Yeah,
cool.
The one where they got the footage. I'm in that crowd in that tent, getting sweaty and getting beaten the shit out of. It was great fun. I didn't stay for the whole thing.
Reading was on main stage. Oh, yeah, their first ever show.
Their first ever show at Reading.
Because they also filmed, because they put Jordan in the crowd for it, they filmed for... I don't know. I'm going to say it because I'm saying it because it's a song title.
Don't.
Right. No?
No.
No, okay. No. N-Bomb in Paris. They filmed that download as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't realise I thought it was just download. I didn't realise it was also Reading.
Fair.
Yeah, so, yeah, but with Hacktivist Sound, they're not really, they are a genre, but I would say they kind of create their own genre. The mixture, obviously, you can tie it a little bit to nu metal and rap and metal and grime, but the combination of all those elements is a Hacktivist thing. Yeah. I would say. So I would say they push for their own genre there. And
yeah.
Of course, there are bands similar to that. Opie is very similar, but obviously it features Timothy and Ben, 2 ex-members of Hacktivist. So I wouldn't really like to say, oh yeah, they're inspired by that, because they were that.
Yeah, they were. It's a continuation of a sound that they wanted to continue with, and just didn't for whatever reason.
A little bit heavier with those bass screams.
Yeah, certainly brought a little bit of a shock to us. Go and check the reaction did.
So continuing on a band that is very similar, not to Hacktivist at all, but in the sense that they created their own genre in a way, and that's Sixth.
Yeah, I'll agree.
So. People cite them, and I'm not going to argue this one because I don't know. I would say yes, but I'm not going to say it's fact. People cite them as kind of creating tech.
I mean, they were certainly around before a lot of bands. Sixth banded in '99.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were around before then. I mean, they're missing some of the elements that I think people would associate with tech metal nowadays, like beastie 8-string Ibanez guitars.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly in sort of like odd time signatures and just general weirdness. They're like a really heavy mixture of, or like they're a mixture of like metal, definitely metal through and through. But more their technical side came from more of like an inspiration from math rock. I feel like. Really, just essentially like off time signatures, weird time signatures, songs that have like 2 or 3 time signatures in them.
Where do they get these fucking names from?
It's stupid. It's basically math rock is given like Tool have an element of math to them because they structure their songs in like algorithms or weird shit like that. So that's basically what math rock is like including math in your rock.
Just snotted everywhere.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. But yeah, I would agree that Sixth have their own sound that nobody ever managed to sort of... There are bands that are close. There's an American band called Protest the Hero that we pitted against Sixth in the original poll way back in the day.
Back in the day of no technology.
And yeah, they are a very similar sounding band in the sense of the way that they play and the way that they structure their songs. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Incredible band. I fucking love them.
Yeah, what I know of them is good.
Mm-hmm.
Part of Friction.
My favourite song. So finalising this, until I go to my final questions, with the bands we are very familiar with. and reviewed on this podcast on April 1st.
Yeah.
Architects.
Yeah. Although we did miss out Bring Me. We actually formed in the same year as Architects.
My apologies.
So this is something that I just wanted to address because you're about to talk about Architects. I don't really care if we don't talk about Bring Me for obvious reasons.
We probably should.
We probably should, and I guess in that sense we have to. But I immediately just want to point out that they formed in the same year that Bring Me did.
Yeah.
So all of these people that would argue that Architects basically piggybacked on the back of Bring Me's success are full of shit.
Plus, Architects are a fucking sick band, and the other guys are not. So, Bring the Horizon. We'll go on them first. May as well do that.
Yeah.
Don't say we don't treat you. I guess I'll punish you. Now, yeah, they start off with the new age metalcore with County Blessings and Suicide Seasons.
Yeah.
Obviously, they moved on to There Is a Hell. Believe me, I've seen it.
There's a heaven. Let's keep it a secret.
Let's keep it a secret. And Sandpit Turtle.
Sandpit Turtle, yeah.
See, I somehow know their album names. Balbum.
Their Balbum.
Now,
let's review a Balbum Thunder.
Brains and blastings and bound them. Yeah, so they've obviously moved off from metalcore and gone into more of a poppy rock sound.
Yeah.
With That's the Spirit and this new...
Is that because he can't scream anymore? I've heard that he just can't do it anymore because his vocal cords are like shot to fuck.
I just don't know.
Fair.
Yeah, is it for do they actually want to do it the whole time? But it sounds a bit weird. Like, sometimes people change their styles a bit, but this is such a drastic change. So is it that they want to do it? Is it they can't scream anymore? Is it that they like not playing music live, so they have backing tracks all the time? Or was it just that they thought, we want more money than this? This will work.
Potentially. They are the sort of band that would, I can imagine.
Unfortunately, I should get onto that at the end. So moving on to Architects. So... Yeah. Sticking with metalcore of the new age, not the old school metalcore, Architects are probably the biggest metalcore band. Definitely in the UK, maybe the world of this current day.
Yeah.
So they've obviously got a lot
massive in Australia.
They are massive in Australia, yeah.
And I always thought that they were quite successful in America, but you said otherwise earlier.
Yeah, they've like, maybe it's like an old interview that I saw, but it's definitely like in the most recent 5 years, America was a struggle for them. And of course they've got fans in America, but I don't really hear about them tour in America too much.
No.
I think I've heard Dan Sells, or seen on Twitter that Dan Sells, they're going to announce a Japanese tour eventually.
Yeah.
But I don't know about America. Like, maybe they'll be on the festival scene rather than tour.
Bands of a similar sort of nature, like, again, one that I can't believe I skipped straight over, Shikari are massive in Japan, like massive. So bands like this have pretty good success over there.
Yeah, I'm surprised with Shikari too. I'm surprised with Shikari as well.
Yeah, whoosh, straight over my head. But then, to be fair, I think that was mostly because I'd kicked them to the back of my mind after we recognised that Prodigy had won the poll.
Yeah. Also, we brought you so much genuine factual information that we didn't want to overwhelm you with bollocks like Shikari.
Yeah, right. Right.
So yeah, Architects, massive bands, obviously gone through their own issues, but I would say they're leading the genre at the moment.
Yeah.
Across the world.
And probably will continue to do so for a while, I think.
Yeah, well, this new, with Holy Hell, obviously it's been their biggest selling album.
Really?
It wasn't highest peaks. It didn't peak highest out of their albums. I think they said that Lost Together, Lost Forever was 17. All Our Gods was 16, and they were hoping that this would hit 15. And they said, that would just mean like another 15 years to get to number one, and 15 albums. Sorry, like by the time it's like 2050. But it actually came lower this time. It went down to 18 this time. But I think there's 3 Queen albums in front of them because of the movie at the moment. So it's a bit harder.
Yeah, that's something that I didn't think about, actually. Yeah. Fair enough, though.
So, yeah, that's what I've got to say about Architects. So, to cap this bitch off, have you got anything else to say?
No.
So, with genres, we kind of talk about, as we've gone along, but how they've affected today's music. What genres ruled the UK through the years. So, obviously, we had punk. That had its time where it was the genre kind of thing. You've had your rock with the Beatles and getting slightly heavier with Sabbath.
Yeah.
But that wasn't... we talk about, again, our genres most of the time. With punk, that was the genre. I don't think metal was ever the genre of the UK. That's just probably never happened anywhere. Maybe Germany. Or Norway. And then,
But then Norwegian metal, or like the sort of what's the word for it? Scandinavian metal is like its own thing, really.
Yeah, for sure. And of course you've got so rock's always been there in the music world, in like the charts and stuff like that. It's always been like your typical Bon Jovis or the Beatles back in the day, or even now on Queen, of course. Now the impact from each significant band, we've kind of done that as we've gone along.
Yeah.
So we won't do it now.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So the last question, which we'll both answer, is how the music scene is looking today.
Are you asking me first?
Yeah.
Right. Tough one, really, because we do still have bands like Architects that are on the rise doing the thing. Unfortunately, yeah, bands like Bring Me are still active, and I dread to think how successful Mantra is at the minute. Certainly won't be looking into that. But then, in terms of sort of the difference between them, is I guess the trend really is that the Beatles, obviously, that's going to be a hard benchmark to top, really. But the trend seems to be that, like, over the old school days, like, what Britain brought to the music scene seemed to have more weight and more value to it than what it does nowadays. For instance, we are still, like, faced with bands like Architects not really being able to break out into the US, whereas some of the earlier bands, like the Beatles, had instant success in the States, even more so than they did in the UK.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like swings and roundabouts with it, really. On the whole, I would say that we're not contributing anywhere near as much as we have done over the years, and that can be seen just by looking at the list here. I've managed to think of 25 old school British bands that were fairly prolific in their own right, and managed to think of probably about 18 or so, like, modern bands. So we're contributing less and less. Is it fair to say that the quality of the contributions that, like, English bands are making to the scene is lacking in comparison to old?
It's a tough one, because you've got, so back then, like, none of this music down here with the recent bands is anywhere near the heights of Sabbath,
No.
of Queen or Beatles.
Essentially, like, if in 40 years' time, can you imagine somebody saying, like, Architects, when I was younger, Architects were this band, and, like, I studied them and I modelled my band on them, in the same way that Corey Taylor would with Sabbath, for example, where, you know, he's like...
No, because I don't think that's a dig on Architects per se.
No.
I feel
Any
like
bands,
there are so many bands now compared to how many bands were then. So you're going to get your legendary bands, and if you weren't legendary back then, no one really knows you, because you either made it or you didn't. Now there's all these bands that are subpar. Some of them are great, some of them not. And obviously back in the day, I'm sure some people were like, oh, I love Queen, but I don't like Motorhead, or I like Maiden, but I don't like Zeppelin, kind of thing. And that was always going to happen. But now you've got such a wide array of music being released to us every fucking week, or at least every month from Britain, and it's not to the legendary stage it is. Also, you've got to think, most of these bands are very more niche to our, like the newer bands are more niche to our tastes, whereas these guys, while they are legendary, if they came out today, would I care?
Probably not.
Like, you can use Greta Van Fleet, yeah, they're not British, but I don't care about Greta Van Fleet. I enjoyed them. I've got one song on the favourites, as we reviewed a couple of weeks back, check it out. But I don't care. There's too many of the same thing coming out. Whilst that's probably a bad example, because Greta Van Fleet are very unique for today's music. Yes, they're very similar to
they're very unique
Led Zeppelin
for today's music, because they're basically adopting an older style as opposed to a newer one, which is what a lot of bands nowadays try to do. They either try to be original or adopt, like, a more modern sort of sound.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like, I don't think the music scene for the UK is bad, but it's not
what
amazing.
It was once, and definitely could stand
revival.
I don't really think it would, like, sort of stand the test of time either at this stage. Like, if no other bands came out from Britain from this point onwards and music sort of ceased to be produced from this day onwards, I think British music would end up falling very much into the depths pretty quickly.
Yeah.
America has still got loads of bands that would be widely listened to. But who
Sure.
knows?
Yeah.
That's a tough one, isn't it? It's
is
a tough question to ask. But the whole purpose of this mini series is that we're going to go through country by country and ask this question, and I guess determine who really would,
Yeah.
who has that longevity.
Outside of our genres of choice, the music in Britain is effectively trash. It's just electrical stuff. That's a lot in America as well, to be fair. But
Yeah.
last question for this one: who do you think is in the bands we mentioned the current genre? Who do you think is the biggest band in the UK?
That is a fucking tough one. That's still active and still continuing right now. Out of the ones that we mentioned, I would probably have to say is either Bring Me or Bullet. Really, Bullet obviously on sort of thin ice. It's fair to say with a lot of fans. It's not just you and I that have the opinion of the way that their music
That's correct,
has been. Like that's quite a widespread thing. So they're perhaps on thinner ice than Bring Me are. Bring Me seem to be solidifying themselves into legendary status somehow.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, my answer has been Horizon. It's just disgusting. What a way to end a fucking night.
But alas, we will continue this topic in a different location in an undetermined amount of weeks. But rather than tour the world one way at a time, because that costs a lot of money, we thought that we would do it in segments.
Yeah, just give them a break.
Give it a break, and then whenever we feel like it, we'll go fuck off to a different country.
We make the choices, all right?
Yeah, 100%. But that does mean that we have an album to review.
We do. It is No Tourists. It is by The Prodigy.
Who are British.
Yep.
Fucking interesting, mate.
Who wants to start us off?
So, getting straight into it. Need someone.
Yep.
He might need someone.
Someone.
Might need someone to help make this album a little bit better. I jest. I actually really kind of like this song. I found myself wanting it to drop, though, and it doesn't, really. Like, there's a part after it's done, it's like sort of slow beat. The first time round, you're thinking like, okay, and then it starts building back up again, and you think, fuck, here we go, and then it just drops back into the slow paced thing again, and I was just anticlimactic.
Yep. So, opening with a pretty repetitive song. It's very synth based and not focused on other instruments. The overuse of the only lyric of "Need Someone" is deafening. And it's
That's strong.
yeah, it was don't know what that says. How it?
I'm gonna buy you a monocle for Christmas.
Yeah, the overuse of the only lyric of the title track, "Need Someone," is very annoying.
Fair enough.
Very annoying. Quickly, just read my work. Sorry.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Light Up the Sky is track number 2.
Yeah.
Mildly catchy, but again, it's not reaching that level that I wanted it to. I listened to this a good couple of times and just thought, I can't deal.
Yeah, I actually think it's a better track. So I think it's got a much better use of drums. Whilst still it's nothing incredible. Whilst I enjoyed it more, it's still nothing incredible.
Fair. So we then move on very quickly to We Live Forever. And the instant thing that pissed me off about this was recycled samples 3 songs in to an album.
I thought I noticed that at times in the album for sure.
Yeah, not keen, quite frankly. If you're recycling samples that have already been used in the previous 2 fucking tracks, then you know you've got a bit of an issue there. Kind of saved by the second drop, but again, it's not reaching that level. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I said it was a much better track than those previous. More lyrical content, but I do miss the vocals of Keith Flint so far. This track, I can assume, will go down well live. I wrote this before I saw it. It did go down well live.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So, Namesake, No Tourists.
Yeah.
What did you think?
So whilst it's an overall unforgettable track with too much laptop synth over music, the outro does sound good and shows some better experimentation with music.
Fair. I put for a Namesake track, in my opinion, this is weak as fuck.
Right, okay.
There's nothing exciting going on at all. Yeah, literal fucking mic drop. Literally. There's just nothing exciting going on so far for me. Which is a shame, because I started listening to it with really high hopes, and by this point was already getting shot down piece by piece.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a nice feeling at all.
Fight fire with fire.
Okay. This is alright. If this came on in the club and I was the correct level of fucked, I'd be all over it.
Okay, fair enough. Well worded, I like that. For me, it's a damn shame that they needed the addition of special guests, the band Horror, spelt H090909, to get a lot of vocal parts in it. Also, whilst the Prodigy have never been known for politeness, the overbearing use of motherfucking, the word, it was just all the time. I don't care to hear it. I don't mind swearing. I love fucking swearing. Right? But
fucking hell, mate.
it's just like motherfucking, no motherfucking, no motherfucking. I'm like, okay, we get the point. You have sex with parents.
Wow.
Of the female gender. Yeah, so that the overuse of motherfucking brings the track further down.
Fair enough. Yeah, I wasn't. Again, if I was like, it's by this point the album's already starting to sort of shine through to me as it's designed to be played in a location in which you are not sound of mind and inebriated with certain things.
Yeah, alcohol.
Yeah. Time Bomb Zone. At this point, albeit they don't sound like for like, but the structure of these songs is very similar in all of them, and I'm still waiting for a punch to the nuts that hasn't happened yet.
This song seemed very similar to points to one of the earlier tracks.
Yeah.
However, this is possibly the best track on the album so far.
Interesting. Very interesting, actually. I'm surprised.
Champions of London.
It's okay. It's potentially among the better ones, but still not flooring anyone, quite frankly.
We finally have Keith vocals for what I believe is the only point in this entire album. However, this is possibly the... that's a wrong sentence. However, this is another underwhelming track, losing all faith at this point. Immediately... Oh no, that's the next song, sorry.
Which is Boom Boom Tap. Boom Boom Tap.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? I'll go first, because
okay.
I feel like you're just going to literally like set it on fire. So I'm actually going to start off by saying it has some appeal through how ludicrous it is. Again, fucked, club, probably do the job.
I would leave the club. So for me, it's immediately fucking annoying. 4 minutes and 5 seconds of repetitive bullshit.
Potter! Jesus. Right. Yeah, I agree.
Give me that look.
Resonate. What
Yes.
are your thoughts on Resonate?
Resonate. A better song, but it's all becoming far too similar. Outro goes on too long.
Fair. Are you ready? I actually quite like it.
Do ya?
Yeah.
It was good live.
Reminds me of From Outer Space, which is one of my favourite Prodigy songs ever. It has its own drop, its own hook, and yeah, it's good. It's alright.
Cool Whip. Give Me a Signal, featuring Barnes Courtney.
Don't know who that is. Not a strong closer for me. As a song, it's not dreadful, but I'm quite okay that this is the end.
I'd agree with that for sure. Whilst this is one of the better tracks on the album, it's all too similar to the rest.
Yeah, definitely a reoccurring theme of reoccurring themes.
Yeah.
So that is pretty much that wrapped up.
Yeah, well, I've got an overall.
Yeah, do you want to hit me with your rhythm stike?
It's obvious the Prodigy have lost their way in songwriting. Recently, Keith, or at least one of the members of the band, if not all the band, said that they're sick and tired of making albums. I think they should push through with that choice and just stick to touring.
That's intriguing. Why, do you know, have they sort of mentioned any more on why specifically?
I don't think they care to make albums.
That's interesting. Why did
There's
they
no
make
money
an
in
album?
albums these days.
Why did they make an album?
Probably because there was enough pressure from the label, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, potentially. Didn't think about that side of it. Overall, for me, just not doing it. Earlier Prodigy all day long, but this lacks diversity, has little weight behind it, a weak attempt at an LSD soundtrack.
Yeah, not good.
No. So, we move on to the ratings.
To the ratings, I was stuck between two numbers this time.
Oh, bloody hell. I know. Really funk it. Do you want to know something?
Oh, I just farted when I coughed.
So was I. You foffed.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So I was actually also stuck between
Were you?
the two,
I wonder
and
if they're the
still am.
same.
I haven't crossed them out yet.
Do you want me to talk and give you my rating while you do that?
Yeah.
So I can talk slowly to see what you are doing. I have settled for the lower of my 2 marks.
Which is what I'm leaning towards.
This is a 3 out of 10.
Wow, that's mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I was expecting a little bit higher from you. I'm also going to go with the lower of my mark and give it 4.
Yeah, well, okay.
So I was stuck between 4 or 5. Potter!
And I have to say that, that is lower than Slipknot's The Great Chapter.
Yeah.
But still not better.
Right.
Okay, so...
I'm not going to lie, when you said that we might have, like, the lowest one, I was just like, no, we won't, because disgusting.
Yeah.
And that would have been disgusting if this was lower than that. But not very far off the ground at all.
Yep. So, before we go on to our outro, it's part of the outro.
It is?
I urge you to go onto our Facebook page on the notes, and give us some ideas for topics, give us some ideas for reaction videos, give us some ideas for reviews. Urge. Do it. And you can join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Decisited, Twitch at Decisited with a lower cap D, YouTube at Decisited with a higher cap D, upper cap even, Twitter at Decisited, Instagram at _Deciphered, and SoundCloud, which will be uploaded every Tuesday for your listening goddamn pleasure. I can't just imagining this. Sorry, yeah, SoundCloud is Deciphered. Imagine listening to this podcast without seeing what's going on.
You see, since we started doing SoundCloud, I have done exactly that, and I've got to say, hearing you crunch crisps and both of us pissing ourselves at the beginning of this episode is probably... We have been Deciphered.
Join us next week
when we will be
bringing you
another topic
of bands. So we're gonna choose some bands, unidentified number of bands, and we are going to change one member in that band for a extravagant member.
So this could be, a Slipknot fronted by David Bowie, or have Eric Clapton playing with Black Dahlia Murder.
You could have Khalees playing with Sixth.
I totally would. That would be well interesting.
And next week, I don't know what's going on. Next week we have a review for you, and it's
that's unusual of us.
Mad. It's unsigned week
again.
Cool. We have the EP Legion by Vic Armour.
Yeah, I'm intrigued, because from my knowledge of the word, that is God stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see how godly they are. Unsigned band, Vic Armour.
Yeah.
Join us next week.
if you're tired of, for some reason, unsigned happening this often or whatever, we're waiting for you to give us more album reviews. I know I mentioned this already, but I'm mentioning it again, so fucking do it. Love you. See you next week.